the missile now! That missile is targeted to the Giant's current position! Where's the Giant, Mansley?
Well, I think it's been about a decade now since I last saw this film, and coming into it now as a more developed person, as a grown-up.
As a real man.
As a real boy. Having gone through more of life and experienced more things, a lot of the things in it really hit home with me more. The fact that I had that familiarity of it from my childhood made it more impactful, I think. That like there was all these memories of watching it, all this emotional resonance from that film already. And then watching it again as a grown-up and suddenly taking on board a lot more of the messages and looking deeper within it, it really resonated with me. More than it would have, like, as a child on a deeper level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's fair.
As a child, I, like, you know, all thought, I said, oh, look, it's the funny robot man. And, you know, get sad at the bit with the dead deer and then cry like a bitch at the end when he goes to stop the missile. And then as a grown-up, I'm watching it, you know, amazed at the way that they tackle horrendously deep things like the acceptance of death and the idea of consciousness.
Yeah, I didn't know if they were going to do that. Like, I didn't know if that's the way that they were going to go, literally, because I was like, oh, this is a kid's film. They're not going to do that. And then they sort of did. Not in a way an adult film would, but yeah.
It caught me so off guard.
Yeah.
It was so bizarre to hear this 9-year-old speak in like a not quite religious way, but like a kind of spiritual way. Or talk about the concept of souls and things with this like quasi-living being who is himself trying to understand whether or not he will die. And then later on in the film, he obviously sacrifices himself to save everyone. And yeah, as a grown-up, I cried like a bitch again. I think as I'm getting older, I'm allowing myself to get more emotionally invested in things, and this was one of them. Having already had that connection with the film from when I was a child, it was already somewhat there. The experience was already going to be an emotional one. However, I was very impressed by just how well it still came across by like a 20-year-old film. At like its very core, it was like covering things like individualism and like xenophobia, because it's the paranoid small town Cold War era America mentality that there always tends to be in these sorts of stories, where, you know, we don't take kindly to strangers, that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. Never mind like a 100-foot metal man. It's interesting because the whole thing throughout the film is teaching people that yes, this robot was built to be a weapon. Yes, this robot was built for potentially nefarious purposes, but that's not who he is. That's not who he wants to be. Partially, you know, due to the whole fact that he's lost his memory, he can't remember. So it's basically a blank slate, starting again and learning from Hogarth about life, about how to live, you know, about like life and death, things like that. It really struck a chord with me just hearing this 9-year-old teach this giant metal death machine about how the world works, and about souls, and about how killing is bad, but, you know, death is a part of life. Death is okay. Death isn't something to be overly scared of, because it's just going to happen. You know, it's cool. But, you know, for you to do that to someone else, that's bad. And it's, especially in a kid's film, it's some heavy shit.
It's good. I like that they did that.
They did a great job of addressing those issues. They could have done it really bad. They could have gone really heavy-handed. They could have gone over the top. But they had the perfect platform there to address these topics with this blank slate that is this robot. Mm-hmm. They're teaching this entirely new being about morals and about societies and about how human beings live their lives. And especially in a kids' film, I think that's one of the best things you can do, is teaching them without them knowing.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that a lot of films for kids used to do, and then they sort of gave up on that recently. Maybe even past 15 years, sort of giving up on it. But like, yeah, it's a good way of putting morals and themes and subtext and everything kind of into films, which the films happen to do that all the time for adults, but doing it for kids as well does work, and it teaches as he learns what's good and bad, the kids do as well, because naturally that's kind of how that works. So it does work putting it in a film like that.
And they definitely did it in the most nuanced way, because they could have done it in a horrendously heavy-handed way. The way it touched upon, like, the Iron Giant, like, you know, not... Some people aren't always mean. Sometimes people are just lashing out because they feel threatened, they're hurt. So it's always, again, it's addressing... And it's addressing that issue of compassion and teaching children that you should, you know, always be kind. It's the sort of the kill 'em with kindness thing. How it's always better to be nice to people and try and understand where they're coming from, because you don't know what is going through. People react differently in different situations. You know, the Iron Giant freaked out because he saw Hogarth's plastic gun, which granted is a massive hyperbole of that scenario. You know, you say the wrong thing to someone, they lash out. It covered a lot of ground for kids, but it did it in a very neat way, and it is very enlightening.
Yeah,
that's the word
I think it's the kind of film that you can just kind of stand back and just go, okay, it's a film about a kid who ends up getting basically a pet robot. The government doesn't like that, tries to kind of come and blow it up because they find that it's a big threat, which technically speaking it is. It shows a bit of threat, and then they actually find out that it's actually pretty nice. By the end, it does the right thing and sacrifices itself, showing that it was actually good. But it has so many layers below that it just kind of keeps going and going, and there's a lot more nuance to the themes that are going on, and even just the obvious things that are being said. There is a lot more thematically, I guess, going on, which is a really good thing for him to do.